Okay, so these are the deadlines, and this is this is the application is completely online. And apart from the project that I already mentioned, there are other documents that you have to upload online, which are very clear and straightforward to produce, like the motivation letter, the acceptance letters from the host lab, and other documentation. Okay, I remind you that the deadlines, of course, we're very close for the March deadline. Whereas if you're interested in postdoc, you have a little bit more time. What I also wish to mention are the short-term fellowships. These are also, we give a lot of importance also to these fellowships. Obviously, they have a different aim. The short-term fellowships can be meant for PhD students and for postdocs. So the case here is that you're doing a PhD or a postdoc in Sri Lanka or in another lab, and you're a national of an ICGEB member country. And then if you wish to apply to come to ICGEB, this time for a short period, usually is around 6 months, but it can vary. It can be a little less, or it can be just a little bit more. And you wish to go there for a very specific reason that fits with your project. Either you want to learn a technique, or you want to construct a mutant. We have to see that this short-term visit is very well tailored to your needs of your current work in your lab where you're doing your PhD or your postdoc. We also launched, not such a long time ago, what we call smart short-term fellowships, and these also are short-term, but these you can then use them to visit or to spend time in a laboratory, which is not in ICGEB, but it is in one of the ICGEB member countries. So if what you need to learn or to be trained or to do is not available in ICGEB, but it is available in another laboratory in ICGEB member country, this is the kind of fellowship that you need to apply. Again, here, the deadline is the same. There are two deadlines here, like the postdoc at the end of March, at the end of September. And again, the application is online, and again, the research project is very important again, and there's other documentation to be uploaded. Okay. Sorry, I'm going a little bit fast because this is not the aim of this talk, but I think, as Lauren said, is important because we do want to increase the application. Myself, I'm very happy to host a short-term 6 months fellowship from Sri Lanka. We are now organizing the visa, so hopefully she will be able to come. She's been delayed because of the pandemic, but hopefully she'll be able to come very soon. We also have meetings and courses funds to support meetings and courses. Unfortunately, the deadline is expired, but just very quickly for next year, if you wish to organize a meeting, for example, in 2023, there will be a call next year in 2022 in February, and you can apply to get sponsorship or funds to organize. And we have different types of events that we fund or sponsor, and they are shown here, and they are obviously of different sizes, different target groups. So please take a look, and we do have to, the application, the next deadline will be next year. So if you have any questions about this, please contact us. But again, we do encourage organization of events in our member countries that brings together scientists, established scientists, as well as younger scientists that can learn and can get updated in very specific emerging topics. Okay. So what I'll get into now is what is the topic of this webinar that we're having is the CRPs. And the deadline is coming up. It's the end of April. So what I'll do now in the next 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes, is go through with you, providing you some information and some guidelines and tips to apply. And I must say that what I will be talking about is actually also, I hope, useful not only for the CRP but for any grant application that you submit, that you wish to submit. Grant applications are very similar all over the world. They're looking for very similar things. Okay. Now, going to our CRP program, obviously you have to be eligible, and to be eligible is actually very simple. You have to have a position of responsibility. So you have to either be a group leader or a professor in a group leader in an institution, or a professor in a university. So you have to have your own group of research. You have to be a leader, and you have to be a leader of a research group. It is called the collaborative research program, but I want to make very clear that collaboration with the ICGEB is welcome, okay? We do a lot of science in our 3 ICGEB components. So we do obviously encourage that you collaborate, that your application involves collaboration with an ICGEB group, but this is not mandatory. And if you don't have one, it will not decrease, it will not be a handicap, okay? So I want to make this very clear. We welcome it, but if you don't have it, it's not a handicap. I'll come to collaborations later on. It's very important to have a collaboration. That is very important, but it doesn't have to be with ICGEB, and it's not mandatory that it's ICGEB, okay? Again, this is obviously a life sciences call. So we fund projects in the life sciences, which can be basic life sciences, can be human or animal healthcare, industrial biotechnology, agriculture biotechnology, bioenergy. So, all topics basically of the life sciences. And we do like to see that the specific topic that you address is of interest to other, maybe in this case, like we're talking Sri Lanka, or to the geographical region. But again, if the project involves fundamental science of value, that is also fine, of course. But we do like to see that you address a topic of interest. And this usually it comes with it, because many scientists in our member countries are very interested and motivated to do science, to do research that benefits the country that they live in. So there is, as already mentioned, there is a special category in the grants. So this is like a subcategory, okay, which are called early career grants. Okay, so this category of grants is intended if you're a researcher that is doing well and motivated, and you spend time abroad outside Sri Lanka, and of at least 2 years, then you qualify for an early career. But you must be younger than 40 years old, and you must have returned to an ICGEB member country for no longer than 2 years prior to the application. And what I want to make very clear here is that even if you're not a national of Sri Lanka, but you've been abroad and you're coming to Sri Lanka and you want to set up your group, and you've been back and you're less than 40 years old and you've been back for less than 2 years, you also qualify to apply, even if you're not from Sri Lanka. In fact, you can be of any nationality because you're doing your research in one of our member countries. Okay, so I want to make this very clear. So this is a special category, and if you fit this eligibility criteria, then you can specify in your application that you want to be considered as an early career grant, okay? If you don't qualify for this, no problem. You will qualify for a standard CRP grant, okay? If you have any questions, please let us know, type them, and then myself, Mariana, and Lawrence are very happy to answer them at the end of the question and answer time later on. Okay, so if we think about important points for a successful project, again here I think not only CRP but for a successful grant project, there are very important points. For example, we need to make it very clear what is the question, what is your scientific question, and what is your hypothesis of your question. So what are you really trying to find out? Which mechanism are you trying to study and why? Okay. I will go a little bit deeper in each of these parts later on. Again, and what you're trying to do has to be realistic, and you have to propose things which are ambitious, of course, but which can, to the reader, can be achieved. Okay, within also the time frame. In this case, as I will also briefly mention later on, in the CRP ICGEB program, it's a maximum of 3 years. Okay, you can apply. You're not obliged to go the 3 years. You can also apply for less, 1 or 2 years, but stick to be very careful that what you propose is realistic within the time goals that you are proposing. This is very important. The idea, the originality of the idea is the people, the reviewers, that will read this proposal want to see that you're doing something different, that you're doing something new. This is fundamental. They don't want to see that you're repeating something that has been already done by others. You're not doing something that you're just changing maybe a strain or a cell line, but a lot of data has already been published using other systems. So there has to be originality. Okay, so this is a very important point that we want to see. Be concise. You're provided certain numbers of words. Do not exceed, and the words that you use have to be concise. You don't have to use them all. Even if you use less, that is fine. Okay. And again, as I mentioned earlier, topics of life sciences of special relevance to the host country are appreciated. Okay. But again, if you have a really nice original project on basic science, fundamental science, this is also fantastic. Now I want to mention 2 points which are part. We'll go through briefly also the application parts, the different parts of the application form, but I want to stress them here immediately because this is, projects are, as I'll mention later on, some projects are rejected at triage because they don't have these 2 components, which for ICGEB-CRP, it might not be for every grant you apply for but for the CRP, they are fundamental. And the first one is collaboration. You need to have a collaboration with other scientists, with other groups. It can even be more than one. And here ideally we would like to see some interdisciplinarity. So the collaboration, your collaborator will bring into the project something that you cannot do, something, maybe an instrumentation that you don't have, expertise that you don't have. Okay. This can be both regional and international. Okay. So obviously regional is nice because you are nearby and maybe you're interested in the topic of research, but it can also be, international. It can be in the United States, it can be in Europe, it can be in Africa or in South America. Okay. And the other part which fits with the collaboration is the training. The proposal must have evidence that young scientists are involved, and then these young scientists, PhDs or young postdocs, can also benefit from this, and ideally benefit also from the collaboration that you're having. Very often a good application will have that these young scientists will spend time in the collaborative laboratories, and we consider this important because young scientists, if they move to other labs, they mature as scientists. They learn new techniques. They learn about going to work in another laboratory is very educational as well. Okay. The application form, just going through, you will see that there are different sections. We will ask details of the PI. We would like to know, where you were educated, where with where you have worked, where you're working now. These are really quite standard. And then we would like to see if you've had any grants in the past, what kind of the publications that you have. And, we are very sensitive about this. If it's a very young, early career, we take into consideration that he or she will not have a lot of publications and maybe not too many grants. So we are very careful in assessing the information about the PI, about the proposer, the PI that is applying. Okay. Then, the title and abstract. And here, you have to be very careful. Very often in an application, this is what is read first by the reviewers: the title and the abstract. So you want to start very well with the reviewers. You want to be very clear. You want to be very concise. You want to see that the topic of research that is covered. You want to see the techniques that are used. So what you have to be here is a clear, concise, and organized. Okay. If the title is too long or it is unclear, if the abstract is not clear and organized, it's a very bad start. You already have your reviewer on the wrong side, and then you will maybe start reading with less. So these are very important parts. Okay, a nice title and a very clear, concise, and organized abstract is something that I really recommend. Concise with the aims. Okay. Now, the introduction, you know, obviously here you have to provide a sufficient background information to enable the reviewer to understand what you're proposing to do. So you have to provide evidence that you're up to date with the literature, and that what you're proposing fits with the literature, and you know, and how is you're going to work on extend what we already know. Okay. The research project itself, you know, you then will explain the research project, and you will highlight aims, milestones, methodologies, collaboration, facilities, training. So having a very clear sections which are well connected. Okay. Again, here you know, we want to see originality, you know, and again, many of you are you know, established scientists, or you're getting really excited about a research topic. So we don't want to take you away from what you're interested in and what you're working, but we do want to see that you're spinning off a little bit. You're providing a new idea or a new twist to what you're doing. We don't want to see that you just want to get funding for work that you're currently ongoing. It's ongoing. It's a project that is already started and ongoing. We want to see, yeah, fine, that you're interested in that topic and you want to take it a little, you want to really investigate a specific, you know, you want to have a distinct project with what you're doing. Okay, so please do not consider these grants as funding your ongoing research projects. Okay. As I said, collaborations is very important. I'd already mentioned that. What I think helps is that if you have a collaborator, you will mention him. You will indicate your collaborator in the application form, of course. Name, you know, his coordinates, what he or she will bring to your project. But it helps if your collaborator can write out a support letter to your project, and you can attach it to the project. So you know, he or she can write that it's very happy to take part of the project, and what the collaboration will bring to the project. This support letter is very helpful because we see that you've made a connection. You know, sometimes we see that collaborations are indicated, but they are indicated, but we think that they are not. Let's say they are not. They haven't established a contact. They're just, you know, they are planned. Let's say. So if we see that they're established and there's a support letter, it's very good. Again, the training, same here. You know, you can say, oh, I will train so many PhD students. No, it's good if you provide a name, a surname, provide details of the people that will be trained and how they will be trained. Okay, again, here we see that you've thought about it, and then you have people in place to be trained. You know, if in these sections you indicate, oh, I will collaborate, I will get in contact with the lab in so-and-so, or I've seen that this person is doing so, and I will contact them. That's not good. We need to see that these things are properly in place. Again, keep to the limits and space provided. You know, by writing a lot, it doesn't mean that you will get more points. In fact, it works against you. You know, keep in mind the reviewers are extremely busy, and you know, we are reviewing. Maybe reviewers are reviewing 10, 15 grants. So if we see an applicant that exceeds in writing or is too lengthy, it doesn't go down well. You know, you have certain space. Keep to that. We have in our website, we have provide information. You know, things I'm saying are also explained in our website. We have a section on how to write an ICGEB grant proposal, and you will see like a summary of what I'm talking about as written down in our website. Timeline and budget. Again, very important. Successful applications propose a project which is realistic with the time that is proposed to do the work. You know, we're all scientists. The people that will review it are established scientists. They've been doing research for many years. so that they know that the time that it takes to do the research and the work that you propose. So if you're trying to impress by stating that you will do so many things, it will actually work against you, because we know that it will not be possible within the time frame, and also it will not be possible within the budget that you apply for. So not only the time, but also the budget. If it's much more costly than what you propose, we see that we immediately tag it as an unrealistic project. An ICGB projects can last maximum 3 years, 36 months, with a maximum annual contribution of 25,000 euros. So you have to fit with the work and fit with the budget. And again, here the budget is very important. You have to look very carefully that we have very clear guidelines, as I explained in our web, on how you can use the budget that is available for your proposed project. And again, here, if you see that you are allocating costs to the budget which are not in line with the guidelines, you lose points. It tells us that you have not read it properly. You have not read the guidelines, and then that is obviously frustrating, because we see that we cannot fund what you're proposing. So there are rules, like, for example, you can purchase consumables, scientific literature, standard laboratory equipment, and you can do traveling and training. Salaries of PIs and infrastructural support, for example, overheads, are not admissible. So again, be very careful of the guidelines of the budget. And there are certain percentages of the budget that can be allocated to equipment, to consumables, to training. So don't exceed those. Stay within those. If for any reason, for example, you need a little bit more budget must be dedicated to a specific item. For example, you need that specific equipment, that without that equipment you cannot do your project, and that exceeds, hopefully, but not too much, what is allocated, then you can write a justification. But don't include it without writing anything. So write, oh, we need to buy this equipment. Instead of 10% of the cost is 12% of the budget, but unfortunately we really need it for this, and so justify. That would be fine. Same for training, same for the other items. But justify it and tell us. Now, Loris already mentioned, and this is very sad for me to talk about this, because every year we do ICGB scientists and international reviewers, which we ask that they review at no cost these projects. We always end up with many more projects that we would like to fund, that we can fund. And as Lawrence mentioned, we have many more projects, and so the competition is very high. So what I like just to go through here is just to inform you what we do once we start selecting the CRPs. So the first screen, as already mentioned, is done by the liaison officer of Sri Lanka, which is in the. Thank you very much. We have a long-standing relationship with the NSF. They will organize an internal selection in Sri Lanka. And you can appreciate, we cannot directly accept all applicants to ICGB because the numbers will be far too high. So every member country can only send a certain number of grants to the ICGB. The ones that are endorsed and sent to ICGB, they will undergo an initial triage. Okay, so here, at least 2 ICGB scientists who are in the field, in the research topic of the topic of the proposal will read the CRP, and then they will write a report, and then there will be a meeting with all the triage reports that we have, and we will decide at that moment which of the grants will merit to go for international review. We cannot send them out for international review simply because it is very difficult to get the reviewers because they are so busy. So we need to do an internal selection a triage selection. And really what we're looking here, we are really looking at what I've mentioned, improper presentation, or improper presentation that it doesn't, all the criteria are not properly met, or maybe we see that the proposer is really presenting something that is outside his or her competence of carrying out the work. So we're doing what we're doing here is a very simple screen. Okay, so if you do everything I've said, if everything I've talked about, hoping that is clear, if you abide to it, most likely, very, very likely, your CRP will go to for external review. And then the ones that go for review, they will be at least sent to 2 international experts who will read it and provide, and then we send them a review form with grades and justifications and also comments. And very often the reviewers, in fact, we ask them to provide comments, and in cases also constructive comments, which in case the grant is not accepted, which unfortunately is often the case because of the high competition, the applicant will get feedback, and this will be hopefully useful for an application, maybe for the following year, or maybe application to somewhere else. Okay, so you will get good feedback about the work that you proposed. And this is, again, this is sad, but this is the truth I have to tell you of the kind of numbers we deal with. And Lawrence already mentioned to you, I don't have that. I don't want to use a specific year. I just want to give you that these are the numbers that usually, that we fall into. So we have, they can even exceed, but between 500 and 600 applications from our member countries, which are submitted to liaison officers. Now, then there's liaison officers have to do their work, and then we get an endorsement to ICGEB of about 150 to 200 applicants. ICGEB will receive all these applications, by the way. A copy will also be in ICGEB, but the liaison officers must do a first selection, and then we will start working on the endorsed applications, which usually go from 150 to 200. And this is when we do the triage. And the triage is done by all scientists in all our components. As I said before, we're lucky. We have many group leaders. We have over 40 group leaders covering so many different topics of the life sciences. So they will be sent to at least 2 group leaders that are in the topic, and they will do a triage, as I mentioned in the slide before. Okay. And after this, usually, half or just less than half will be sent for international peer review. And then we get the reviews, and one ICGEB scientist will then will be assigned each project, and they will read the reviews, and they will look at the project again, and then there will be a final meeting where we will among the committee, which is scientists from all our components, is a very large committee. Each director of the 3 components is part of the committee, and many scientists are working in this committee. And we work very hard to try and do our best to assign the most merititious grants. And as I said before, this is a very difficult process because often we are in a situation where grants are of a very similar standard. So again, every little detail counts. So I hope I've been clear. And as I mentioned to you earlier, if you go to our website, you will find information. You will find a page on how to write an ICGEB grant proposal, what we look for, the topics, and tips on how to prepare it. And it's really a summary of what I've talked about here. So if anything is not clear, hopefully it's clear here. And if it's not also clear here, feel free to contact me, and I will either write to you or we can have a chat over the computer to clarify. And also you will find also, apart from this kind of guidelines and on tips how to write a proposal, you will also find frequent questions that applicants have about our CRP program. And again, this is in our website, and I think many of the questions that you probably have that you have are probably answered here. And again, if they're not, we'll be very happy, myself, Lawrence, or also the CRP office to answer them to you. Okay. I thank you. I stop here, and we're very happy to take, myself and Lawrence and Mariana are very happy to take questions. I put some emails here. There is the CRP email that if you have any questions about CRP, you can write here, and Barbara in the CRP office is extremely efficient, and she will either answer herself or she can then contact either a group leader or myself or Lawrence to help answer the question. And then also I also include here the fellowships email and also the courses email, and also if you have any questions, like Lawrence said, we'd be very happy to, we do this. This is a very our most popular program, and a program that we like, that all PIs like a lot. I mean, we love to give funding to good scientists in our member countries, but as Lawrence said, we wish we could fund more. So if you have any ideas or any proposals of how we can improve, or if maybe how we can also increment this program in Sri Lanka with any of your national programs, we'll be very happy to talk to you about this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your informative presentation. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Gauri Murthy, Head of Research Division, National Science Foundation, to deliver her presentation on scrutinizing ICGEB-CRP applications and endorsement. Over to you, madam.
Thank you, Nadisha. Dr. Banks, Dr. and Ms. Marina, I'm happy to see you all after some time. I will start my presentation. Right.
We can't hear you, Gauri.
Right. Actually, I would like to share some experience how NSF is screening the applications. As you all, just for the participant, as you all know, NSF is the premier organization for economic and social prosperity of Sri Lanka. We are the focal point in Sri Lanka for ICGEB since 1990. As Dr. Banks and Diana mentioned, we have a long history of collaboration with ICGEB. All ICGEB activities for member countries are carried out through the focal point. The liaison officer is in charge of endorsing the application at the national level. In case of NSF, actually the Director General of the National Science Foundation. Today we are actually this webinar is specifically for collaborative research program. But in addition to the collaborative research program, ICGEB offers various grants such as doctoral, postdoctoral grants, sponsorships for meetings, workshops, like Dr. Venturi mentioned. ICGEB-CRP, the CRP grants the application basically under basic life sciences, human health care, industrial and agricultural biotechnology, and environmental education areas are encouraged to put the proposal. So CRP, ICGEB-CRP program, they standard research grant Actually, the early career return grant is specifically aimed at young scientists who have recently returned from abroad to the member. Introduced a few years back. Each member state can endorse up to 3 standard research grant applications, 5 applications. As submitted online via the dedicated portal by 30th April, that is the proposal deadline. Then submission of application before the deadline. Then once you all submitted the proposal will be approved. All the applications, all the proposals by NSO and based on criteria. The selected applications will be communicated to the ICGEB by 31st May. That is before that, the focal point, the member endorsed application. Because endorsement is very important. Without the endorsement, then ICGEB will acknowledge the endorsement. So once we receive the applications, first the applications will be scheduled. Then of applications for parts will be done by the international licensing. Then the application the research division. The relevant officer will go through the application. Then the applications will be scrutinized according to with the relevant committee, which comprises basically there are certain criteria where budget, output, national importance, collaboration, even though collaboration is very important, we are also experience and the committee. Dr. Venduri has explained in detail in this presentation how the proposal, what are the important points you have to consider. Cost will be given. Then the selection will be done. Once the scrutinization is over, the results of ILD will communicate with the ICGEB. As he mentioned, as Dr. Venduri mentioned, again recollect the thing because a good proposal will you have to give proper justification. Very precise, accurate, and focused. Objectives should be clearly mentioned. Then methodology should contain sufficient details. Very, very important because based on our experience, we have seen that the time and the time limitation in the budget. Because if you can't post time period and within the budget post, it is very difficult because feasibility is very. Then outputs and outcomes potentially indicated. Based on our experience, actually we Yes, we have seen that most of the proposals actually sometimes some of the proposals are not very comprehensive or not. So, indicates that it is not planned and last moment they have together. The mistake one. So we have noticed that sometimes the budget are not according to the ICGEB. They have mentioned that certain percentage should be there, certain boards should not exceed certain percentage. Budget to be prepared according to that. And equipment justification for each item to be given. Then they have mentioned that annual budget amount should not exceed 25,000 euros. So, and the arithmetic error. We have noticed that calculation, totaling, and everything sometimes. So, please, when you all have prepared the budget, please double check it whether everything is in order, whether the calculations are okay, totaling is okay. Then the feasibility. That is another one we have noticed. The 3-year time frame. Feasibility also very important. So if you can consider all these important points, actually based on our experience we are telling. So if you can consider all these points and prepare the proposal initially, proposal. So you can see how the next.
Gauri, how are you?
Thank you very much, Dr. Gauri. Actually, we are very happy to say that in last year, Dr. Kavisha Vijay Singh, she has secured a CRP grant value of euro 40,000. And her proposal title was on investigating the role of secreted dengue NS1 protein in potentiating dengue virus infection in uninfected cells by including changes in the plasma membrane proteome. So currently, she's working as the senior lecturer at Faculty of Medicine, Sabaragamu University of Sri Lanka. So let me introduce her credentials. She obtained her bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology from Colombo University in 2013 and completed her PhD in biochemistry from Notre Dame University, USA in 2018. Actually, she has many high impact research articles in world recognized journals. So I would like to invite Dr. Kavisha Vijay Singh to share her experience regarding the effective proposal writing. Over to you, Dr. Kavisha.
Everyone, I hope you can hear me well. So I'm Kavisha. I'm a little correction right now. I'm a lecturer attached to University of Colombo at the Department of Chemistry. And I'm deeply humbled by the invitation from NSF to speak at this webinar today. And I'm also very thankful for ICGEB for supporting me and a lot of Sri Lankan scientists as they move, as we try to manage our research in sort of technology lagging conditions right now we are facing. So let me share my screen. All right. So what I'm going to do today is to share how I sort of started writing my proposal for ICGEB-CRP grants. So before you start writing, I think what matters most is to decide on the research question. So this would take the most amount of time and also lots of thought, as well as this will be the most crucial part of the entire application process. The research question can be something, a spin-off idea that you came up during your grad studies or postdoc studies, or a novel idea that came to you while you were discussing with your coworkers or listening to a seminar. For me, my research question came to me when I was reading a published article, and I came across an observation in an experiment that was presented in that paper, which little attention was paid to. And I found that observation very interesting, and my entire proposal was actually based on why that observation has happened in that experiment. So as grant applicants, I think what we have to remember is that our research question will be assessed by those who are reviewing the grant application. So before convincing the reviewers, I think it is important that we convince ourselves that this is the right research question to ask. It has the proper scientific merit. If it is addressed, or if it addressed and has a positive outcome, it can actually shift current research or practice in a new direction, or contribute to the progression of the field. So once you decide on the research question, you have to decide on how to find the answer to that research question. So that is basically deciding on the research methodology. I think you have to decide on the research methodology before you start writing the grant application. Obviously, you can do modifications or refinement to the methodology as you write the proposal, but it is always best to have a sound methodology in place before you start the application, start writing the application. So the methodology you have to choose has to be a robust technique that would produce reproducible and unbiased data. So once you are set with a research question and a sound research methodology, you can move to start writing the application. What I have listed here is entirely my perception of what I think is what I deemed important when I wrote the application process. If there is any discrepancies, what has been said during the discussion earlier, please always refer to the earlier panel, because this is what I thought that was important for me. Okay, so my number one goal when I wrote the grant proposal is to convince the relevance of the research question to the reviewers. So I wanted to make sure the reviewers understand that this research question is worth investigated and providing and being worth being funded or put your money into. So to convince that, you have to convince your proposal addresses an important problem, that it could open up new avenues in the field. It can shift the current research or the practice into a new direction, remove a barrier that would otherwise impede the progression of the field. Or if it is not addressed properly, could leave an empty space in the knowledge, a gap in the knowledge. So at the same time, you have to convince that your proposal has a strong scientific premise. It has strong scientific backing from published research, or you already have preliminary data that can strongly support your hypothesis. At the same time, show the reviewers that you are departing from the status quo. You're not doing the same thing that others are doing. Your idea is novel, your aim and the goals are novel, and it's a departure from the status quo. And I think this final point is also important. I think you have to convince the reviewer upon successful completion of this proposal you are presenting, it would have a positive impact or has a direct positive impact to the country, either through improving the health and well-being of the community or contributing to socio-economic progression of the country. So all of these points are listed here. I fit all those important points into the introduction section of the ICGEB-CRP application. So this was just a one page. So within this one page, you have to capture the attention of the reviewer and then convince the reviewer that this is the research question that needs to be funded. So here's what I did. I built up my story by briefly introducing some technical details or background information about the topic related to my research question, and then mentioned about the observations and conclusions of published research or preliminary data that leads up to the research question. And then once these are in place, you can mention the gap in the knowledge and also the hypothesis that you formulated for this proposal. And very diplomatically say why the current status quo doesn't work. Why is it unsatisfactory or incomplete? For my case, it was incomplete. What I was trying to do was to fill that gap. So very diplomatically say that also. So I have this habit of using bold letters or italics to highlight important points in the in a grant application. So I tend to use bold letters in gap in the knowledge and hypothesis. So this draws the attention of the reviewer to important parts of the proposal, and so they will not miss them, because these are necessary for them to understand why this research question needs to be funded or understood. So once you write down the gap in the knowledge and hypothesis, you can also explain how the outcome of this project, the positive outcome of this project can be beneficial to the country or or has a global impact. Sorry about that. Once you have finished writing the introduction section, what you have to do next is to achieve your second goal. That is to convince that your proposed method is the best suited to address this research question. So before you jump into directly into the research, into the methodology or the experimental design question part, you have to state the overarching goal or the overall aim for this project. And then usually the overarching goal, in order to achieve the overarching goal, you need to achieve some sub-objectives. So they become the specific aims. So you have to list them also. So your proposal can be divided into distinct parts, each having a specific outcome, and this specific outcome paves way to identify the specific aim for this part of these sections of your proposal. And collectively, outcomes of these specific aims will fully address the overarching goal. So you have to identify the specific aims of the proposal as well. Then for each specific aim, you have to describe the experimental design and methods and how you would collect or analyze and interpret the data. And also it's important to identify potential pitfalls that can occur with the experimental design and propose alternatives. So as scientists, we all know that things don't go out as planned always. So you have to show the reviewer that you are aware of potential caveats in your experimental design and you are prepared to address them by providing alternative strategies. So all of these points I mentioned in this slide, you can fit them in the research project section of the ICGEB-CRP application format. So how I did was I restated the hypothesis and the gap in the knowledge hypothesis and overarching goal very briefly to start, and then identify the specific aim. So like I said before, overarching goal can be divided into distinct components. So these are sort of sub-objectives, and achieving outcome for each specific aim will collectively address the fully address the research question you have posed. So, so list these specific aims also. And the specific aim should be a focused sentence or two. So they has to be brief. And I have again the habit of using bold letters or italics to highlight the specific aim sentence. So the reviewers won't miss this also. So for a 3-year project, a research project, I would think 2 to 3 specific aims are appropriate. And if you have chosen only 2 specific aims, with each having equal importance or equal weight, then you have to devote equal number of pages to each specific aim. For example, if it is just 2 specific aims with equal importance, that means about 2 to 2.5 pages, because this research project section is about 5 pages in the application. once you identify the specific aim, for each specific aim, you have to state what needs to be done in order to achieve it and how you plan to get it done, the methodology. And you have to justify your choice of method or experimental design. Explain the reviewer that this is the best available method, and if you are actually developing a technique, you can justify your choice by very diplomatically saying why the current available techniques will not help you to achieve your specific aim. So explain how this method will produce reproducible and unbiased data. So, and also you have to explain how you collect the data, what is the sample size, the number of replicates, and what are the appropriate controls you're using for each research activity, and how the data is interpreted, such as how statistical analysis is done. And also collaborations. I think there is, you have to, I think it is a good practice to have collaborations in your research proposal, because your expertise alone will not help to complete the story. There will always be a gap in the knowledge. So always try to fill them with other expertise also. And then state the expected outcomes for each research activity. Like I said before, the potential pitfalls, what happens if things don't go as planned, what are your plan B, can the proposal continue even if your hypothesis fails? So actually, one of the most important pitfalls that any one of us can encounter is, what if our hypothesis proves to be invalid? Can there be other alternatives? And are you prepared to address them if your original hypothesis proves to be invalid? So you have to show the reviewers you are aware of all of these caveats, and you can manage it or has alternative strategies in place to overcome these caveats. And then also the time frame is very important. Don't be too ambitious and put a lot of research activities that you cannot complete. So consider about the 3-year time limitation also. So with that, I'd like to conclude my short presentation. I want to thank ICGEB program again for supporting myself and the Sri Lankan scientists. And I also want to wish the potential applicants good luck. I'm happy to take any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vijay Singh, for sharing your experience. So as per the agenda, our next item is Q&A session. So questions are welcome if you need any clarifications. I think some of you have forwarded your questions to the chat box as well. We will take them one by one. I think Mr. Shantasiri can moderate. Mr. Shantasiri, over to you.
Thank you, Nadisha. I think I went through the chat box while I'm hearing the speeches. I think Dr. Lawrence was so efficient, and once the questions goes, Dr. Lawrence gave the answers. So I think many questions were related to the eligibility criteria and kind of sort of questions. I think more than 90%, 99% already answered. Is that, am I correct, Dr. Bank?
I think it is. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. There are actually here, I'm just looking at the chat box now. There are a couple of additional questions that have just come in. there's a question from Neelam asking if the fellow salary can be covered. No, the PI salary is not covered by the CRP. That has to be from the organization where they're working. There is a question from Kalmini wanting to know if there's anybody working on degenerative bone diseases within ICGEB. Unfortunately, no, there isn't. So for that particular project, I would suggest that you, try to find a partner in an ICGEB member country, or alternatively, anywhere else. There's a question from Razika saying, is there any need for a research budget? Well, yes, you have to budget what you're going to do for your consumables, for equipment. I hope that is clear. And then Thelini asks, is it possible to hire a, okay, there's so many questions coming in here. Thelini asks, is it possible to hire an Mphil or PhD student for the project? You can, of course, have Mphils and PhD students working on the project. To actually support them from the CRP, it's best if they come from a different member country. Okay. Vittorio, did you want to pick up? I think the next one is from Harshana.
Material science and engineering, nanoscience. No, we're not very strong in ICGEB on this part. And again, like Lawrence mentioned earlier, my suggestion here is that you know, you're not linked. You're not linked to. You're not obliged or linked to collaborate with an ICGEB.
We've lost you, Vittorio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So to answer the question, unfortunately, ICGEB, we don't have a group dedicated to material science. My suggestion is, like Lauren said, for another question is, for your CRP, is to find somebody that best fits your collaboration and contact. It doesn't have to be, this group does not have to be in an ICGEB member country. Collaborators can be from anywhere. Again, I reiterate that collaborating with scientists who are not in ICGEB does not mean that you're going to get less points. Not at all. We want to see that collaboration that you're taking best fits your needs. Okay. I hope this answers your question.
Okay. The next one is on quantum computing with genetics and material science. Well, as I say, we're working in life sciences. So we are definitely interested in genetics. Machine learning activities is done in New Delhi, but we're not material science. The next one is on nutraceuticals and cosmeceuticals. Vittorio, what do you think?
Again, we don't have a purely dedicated group doing this. There might be scientists who will be interested in parts of it, in topics related to this. So again, my suggestion here is to look for somebody who is really dedicated to this topic. Okay. It's a very important topic, and I appreciate it.
I mean, the one thing with the nutraceuticals I would suggest also is that Natasha in the BDU has been having some collaborations in those areas. So what I would suggest, Induni, if you have a specific question or topic in mind, you drop me an email or Vittorio an email, and we can investigate further for you. Nelum has a question on, can a purely computer-based project be funded? Well, again, we support biocomputing, and depending again on the topic, it could be done. Obviously, the budget would be much smaller because you don't need laboratory reagents. Lazika, can we support a PhD, a postgraduate student? Well, there's been several questions along that line throughout. And I think, Vittorio, this is something we need to look at a little bit more closely. Currently, the students that are supported with stipends off the CRP should be coming from another member country. They shouldn't be people coming from Sri Lanka. But this is something we may wish to look at, I think, in future calls. I think it's a limitation in the program that I'm not too happy with. Okay, another question. Oh, Vittorio, this is your street, from Dipani.
The one about the, which one?
Microbial culture collections.
Oh, well, we don't. ICGEB does not have a culture collection in the sense that we are in a web with a culture collection that we provide strains for people that ask us. But we have groups. We have groups like, for example, my own group, that we have large culture collections, or the group of Shams Yazdani. So there are two major groups that have microbes. We also have microalgae collection. So my suggestion here is either contact me or Dr. Shams Yazdani in New Delhi and let us know what you're particularly interested in. There are many culture collections worldwide that will provide strains, so many different types of strains and type strains for a very reasonable cost, around $20, $30. But just by signing an MTA and providing information that you will only use the strains for research purposes. If you need any addresses or contacts for any culture collections, there are some very big ones that will get you the strains that you need very quickly at a very reasonable cost.
Is Kavisha still there? I have a question for her.
Yes, I'm there.
Hi, Kavisha. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was very nice.
Thank you.
So, how is the work going? How are you coping? Are you managing to do experiments?
I think so. There is a bit of issue. I think Dr. Gowri would be best to answer. So we have currently there is a there has been a new regulation in place when we accept foreign grants. So one of the regulations is that you have to go through the University Council and then the University Grant Commission, the Higher Education Ministry, the Finance Ministry, and into a cabinet paper. So this takes a lot of time in order to get all the agreements. So I think Dr. Gowri would perhaps can sort of explain why this takes such a long time to get all approved, because it's really been a lot of, it's been an obstacle actually trying to get things moving for us.
Because when did you get awarded? You were awarded last year, is that correct?
In December, yes.
Right, okay, and so you're still trying to get the projects, and I guess the pandemic has not helped either.
It hasn't, yes, because there is limitations to when we can attend in meetings and all that. So it's hard.
But one thing you need to be aware of, obviously it's good if it can start as soon as possible, and it would be great if NSF can help you through that process. But, don't worry if it means that you can't start straight away. we were very flexible about allowing extensions to the project. So don't worry about it from that side.
I appreciate that. Yes.
Okay. And how have you found working with ICGEB administration? Has that been smooth?
Yes, very much. So they've been very helpful. So I was when I did the application, I was at a different university, and during that award period, I actually transferred to a different university.
Oh, I remember your case. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So they've been very helpful, accommodating that also. So it's my interaction with them has been very. They always respond very fast. So there is almost no waiting time also. So that's
great. Excellent. Good. Really happy to hear that. Let me know if there's anything that we can do to help, and good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see another question in the chat. This is really for me, I think. Yeah. Are all cancer-related projects funded? Yes, they are. That's fine. There's a big interest in cancer in ICGEB. We have several groups. I think I wrote earlier with a list of all the names of PIs who are working on cancer. So that sort of project would certainly be relevant. Okay, I've got another question on cattle reproduction. No, there's nobody doing that sort of work. And that type of thing, I think, Vittoria, is what we would consider borderline. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would. You took a word out of my mouth. I would call it borderline. We had, in fact, last year a couple of projects, and they were borderline because they were borderline between science and not. They were not really. We didn't consider them pure science or scientific enough. But again, I mean.
Okay. And another one on respiratory bacterial pathogens. Vittorio, I think that's you.
Yeah, there are some scientists in New Delhi working on Mycobacterium. So if you're interested in Mycobacterium, there is expertise in ICGEB, and that's about it actually. Right, there are obviously viral people working with viruses in case, but not bacteria.
I mean, but the groups that are in Delhi are world class.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If you're interested in mycobacteria, then New Delhi is the place to go. Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Bank?
Shanta, yes.
Yes, I think now many questions have been addressed efficiently, and I think we are now closing half an hour bit behind the schedule, and I think it is almost successful and very interesting. So I think my host indicating in another 5 to 10 minutes, maybe the allocated time will be, that is alarming. So I think we may be able to give another 1 or 2 questions from the audience to speak them, or otherwise what we can do is the prospective applicants have sufficient time, because given deadline is 31st April, end of April, they have some sufficient time. If they still have some question to clarify, we can make in the National Science Foundation facilitate to questions to and do kind of facilitation to get them clarified. So shall we give any other common question to 1 or 2?
Well, if I may, I see there are several participants that ask, is ICGEB doing this? Is ICGEB doing that? you know, I strongly recommend. We have a very comprehensive website with all our scientific stuff and quite a concise for each group, quite a concise explanation of their research interests. So feel free to write to us, but I also recommend you just go through the website, which also divides our research that we do in macro areas. So you will find, for example, communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases, plant biology, medical biotechnology. So my recommendation is, with all these questions, please visit our website and contact us or the group leader that you are interested in.
Just to follow on from that, these are the three last questions, Mphil. So, okay, we'll answer them. Does anybody work on all cancers, salivary markers? Again, it's cancer. ICGEB is interested in cancer. If you have a project in that area, there'll be people who are interested. Hiranya, do we work on stream ecology? No, we don't. There's no groups doing that sort of work. The nearest to that would be the groups in New Delhi working on looking at bacteria and fungi in different settings, but not specifically stream ecology. And then the last question, do we fund agricultural-based research? And the answer is yes, we do. There's a huge, I mean, Vittorio is one of the world leaders in looking for biofertilizers. There's a huge group in New Delhi doing various aspects on agricultural research. So again, you know, look at the website, see if there's things that you find interesting.
Thanks. I have a question regarding the short-term fellowships.
Yeah.
So it says that only postdocs or PhD students can apply for short-term fellowships. Is it possible for the PI itself to apply?
Yes.
I actually like that. I mean, we're flexible. I actually like that because the PIs, you know, go back to their country. We're very sure of that. And so, and they can really learn a lot. And I've had a PI visit me and it was actually very, very good. And now we're still in contact. So we're flexible and I also even recommend that. Yeah.
Thank you, Vittorio.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shanta, I think it's been extremely effective.
Right. Then shall we move on to the last item?
I think so.
Right. Before I start the concluding remark, I want to highlight there was some interruption with the NSF presentation, NSF messages to the prospective applicants due to some technical difficulties. Anyhow, Dr. Gauri's key message was, please prepare well before articulating your application. Read the guidelines. Of course, Dr. Vittorio also highlighted that properly go through the guidelines before filling the application. And also we experience, even it reiterate, you follow the ICGEB guidelines when particularly preparing the budget. We experience that it is not followed up because we also receive the applications on competitive basis. We are being the liaison office only allowed 5 applications to endorse to the ICGEB. So we compelled to, I mean, poorly addressed or applications which have not followed the ICGEB guidelines, there is a high probability to, I mean, not selected. So that is the key message, so that you properly go through the guidelines and prepare your proposal, be competitive. And I think now you will be in a good position to do that. So that's a key message from the NSF side. Now I move on to the concluding remarks. I think I have to extend our sincere appreciation Dr. Lawrence Bank, Director General of the ICGEB, because when I write the first email to him proposing it is better to have this kind of a webinar, his response in minutes, I received a positive, prompt, and delighted response. So that was how initiation was foundation led for this webinar. That enabled me, encouraged me with my team to organize this webinar successfully. Our Director General, Acting Director General of the National Science Foundation, Mrs. Damayanti Vijayasinghe, with her busy time schedule, she accepted to deliver the welcome address. Thank you, Madam, for sharing us with your kind words and the welcome speech, which is encouraging. Of course, Dr. Ms. Mariana McCallum, Chief of External Relations, always your cooperation, your speech, and your kind words are almost appreciated. Then Dr. Vittorio, I think the objective was, today webinar's objective was well achieved because your presentation was, it has been prepared such a way that it well fitted with the objective. Your presentation was well explained, the scope and eligibility criteria and everything. I think a lot of questions which had been initially in the prospective applicants, many were sorted out after your presentation. So thank you very much for preparing such a nice presentation and presenting it with clarity. And also Dr. Gauri Murthy from the National Science Foundation. Of course, she was engaged with another webinar. He had to rush to this webinar, but she accepted the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Gauri, for sharing your research division experience. Our research division is the arm which actually process the ICGEB application received by the liaison office. Thank you, Gauri. And of course, Dr. Kavisha also was volunteered to by accepting our invitation to share the experience with, as a winning grantee from the ICGEB. I think your presentation also enlightened the audience how to write a winning proposal. Objective achieved. So question and answer session, being an efficient writer and comprehending, Dr. Bank answered very quickly, which was, I think, led to saving our time. So our tasks made easy, user. Thank you. Apart from that, I want to highlight several other couple of people who was behind the today webinar. Professor Prasad Jayasinghe and Mr. Adish Gamanpila from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, because Zoom meeting facility and the hosting part was done by Professor Prasad Jayavir and Mr. Adit Gamanpila. Thank you very much for your kind support. Otherwise, we couldn't, realize this kind of a webinar with such a comparatively high amount of participants. Thank you very much for your cooperation and accepting our request to host the today's webinar. And also, we also made arrangements to webcast to our YouTube channel, NSF YouTube channel, to the applicants who were not in a position to link online with the Zoom link. So thank you very much for arranging for the webcasting, Mr. Madhava, IT Manager of the National Science Foundation. Thank you, Madhava. And of course, last not least, my team, International Liaison Division team, because I can't do alone this kind of a successful webinar, particularly Nadisha, who did the comparing today, did a marvelous job, particularly disseminating the message from the beginning, and she was able to increase the number of registrants for the webinar more than 100. So recording number of registrants, of course, maybe due to connectivity at their end, we ended up with actual, I think 180 on board, but I think almost 50%, so substantial portion. So thank you ILD team and Nadisha. So I can, with that words, I can conclude that today's webinar was very successful and objectives were achieved. To recap, I want to highlight the prospective applicants. Be clear and concise your research question. Support with your literature and previous research recommendations. Be abide to guidelines of the ICGEB and the deadline of the National Science Foundation and the ICGEB, and be realistic and be abide by the guideline when you prepare your budget, and seek for right collaborators, right team, and right interdisciplinarity. Finally, if you have further questions, you either mail to my email, shanta@nsf.gov.lk, or Dr. Vittorio gave another email related to CRP, that is crp@icgeb.org. So you have some sufficient time, you can raise questions. I am sure Dr. Bank and the team definitely will help you. And finally, hope Dr. Bank, the pandemic situation will, with the time, will go down, and you and Dr. Vittorio and ICGEB team can meet in Sri Lanka in near future. I very much appreciate your quick response and positive attitude and support from the beginning to the end. Thank you very much. And this is the end. Hope our prospective applicants will be in a better position to send now very competitive proposals, and by 2021 there will be many winning grantees, I hope, from ICGEB. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shanta.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been, tremendous work you've done. Excellent. And please send us the screenshots from everybody. That would be great. And,
sure.
And also, if you could send us the link to your YouTube, that would also be good.
Sure. Both will be done. Both will be attended. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. And I really hope to see you all in Sri Lanka soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Thank you.